Welcome back, guys. Allison here. Do you tend to worry about the worst that could happen in any given circumstance? Do you let fear run your life? It is a very common trap to fall into, to let the worry about things that are happening, whether it's physical health or jobs or relationship, get to us. And fear is a giant topic. It covers a lot of things. So I'm going to be very specific today in how I discuss fear and worry. And if you get something out of this today, please tap that like button and subscribe to the channel. Would really appreciate it. So as I said, fear is a really, kind of overarching umbrella. It covers a lot of things, but I'm going to put it in a very specific context today to illustrate this point. And that is that we tend to worry about things that never happen. Okay, we tend to worry about things that never happen. And I'm going to put this in a physical context, okay? So let's say you have a new symptom. Something happens to you, you have a new symptom, and it doesn't go away. And so now you start worrying about it, which is normal. But then you start researching it online. You Google it, you find out some disturbing information. Now you start freaking out. And then you freak out even more because you got a lot of people giving you, input on this. And some of them, they don't mean to scare you necessarily, but they do scare you. And then some of these medical sites scare you. And, you start spiraling on this, okay? So now you think, oh my gosh, I've got the plague. Okay, this is horrible. So I'm going to talk about how you can prevent getting into that kind of headspace. So I'm going to share with you a story about my little Italian grandmother, my Nana. And I loved my Nana very much, but my Nana was a hypochondriac. And actually, one of the greatest gifts she gave me was being a hypochondriac, because in watching her go through this, it helped prevent me from going down that same road. Okay, so my grandmother lived to be almost 90 years old. She was 89 and some odd months when she died. But for most of her adult life, even before I was born, my grandmother believed that every time she got a weird symptom, that it was going to be like the worst case scenario and she was going to die from it. And this, everyone who knew her and loved her knew that this is what the ritual she would go through in her mind. And so she spent years worrying about things that never happened. And close to the end of her life, we used to go through this little strange ritual together where, I'd go see her. She lived in it wasn't assisted living, but she kind of lived in one of those senior apartment places where they provide meals and stuff, but she had her own apartment and a little kitchen there and everything. Anyway, I would go see her. I usually got her groceries for her and stuff like that. But the days I didn't see her, I would call her on the phone and check. And this is kind of how it would always go. I'd say, "Hi, Nana, how you doing?" And she'd go, "Oh, I don't know, dear." She goes, "I don't know. I think this might be it." And I'd go, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Oh, I've got this like discomfort or this pain or something." It would always be something. And then her worst fear was becoming blind. My grandmother did have the beginnings of macular degeneration and never got so severe that she was ever blind. But her big fear was that she would be blind from it, which is not really that outrageous of a fear. It could have happened had she lived longer or whatever. But it was a big fear for her, I think, because her mother had skin cancer on her face or something that had gone into her eyes and made her blind. And so my grandmother had witnessed that. And of course, her big fear was that she would be blind. But she would take it to an extreme. And so the little ritual we would go through is she'd say, "Oh," she goes, "now." And it's like, I knew she had a sharp mind. So it wasn't like she forgot she told me this, but she always told me this. She would say, "Now, dear, if I go blind, I want you to know that I'm going to feel my way down the corridor to the elevator." Because in the building she lived in, there was a swimming pool in the basement area. She goes, "I'm going to feel my way down the corridor to the elevator. I'm going to get in the elevator and I've memorized the buttons." And she says, "I'm going to go down to the swimming pool and I'm going to drown myself." And I'd go, "Okay." I mean, I knew she wouldn't really do it. Okay, this was not somebody who was ever going to kill herself, but she was very dramatic. And her thing was, I can't live with being blind, and so I'm going to have to do that if I go blind. Well, of course, we go through this little dynamic on a regular basis for probably the last 3 or 4 years of her life. Well, she never did go blind. And the things that my grandmother used to worry about getting, like cancer or having a stroke or, any number of other weird diseases that she thought was going to happen to her, never happened to her. So she worried needlessly for years, decades actually. And the thing that finally got her was something she never worried about. Because my grandmother had always had a very strong heart. She'd never had any heart problems or anything until about the last 6 months of her life, and she started developing congestive heart failure. But she didn't somehow put that together like maybe that's the thing that's going to get me somehow. She still was thinking, oh, I'm going to go blind and I'm going to have to go down to the swimming pool type of situation. Well, what killed her was having a massive heart attack. She ended up having a massive heart attack. She lived for about 7 or 8 hours afterwards. I was with her the whole time in the hospital. It was actually she had a very peaceful death, and she didn't have to suffer a great deal, so that was good. But that situation taught me something. It taught me something extremely valuable, and I was 30 years old at the time she died. And I'm so happy I learned that at 30 years old, which is that most of the things we worry about are never going to happen to us. And it's the things that come out of the blue that will probably get us. So the point is, why are you wasting time and energy on possibilities instead of realities? Why would you waste time and energy on possibilities, as rare as they might be, rather than realities? So I've seen not only my grandmother go through this, I've seen other people go through this later on in my life as well. And it always really amazes me that people get caught up in this, oh, this is the thing that's going to get me, or this is the thing that's going to cripple me, or whatever, when they don't really know that for sure. And honestly, I've seen in more cases than not, people worry about something that never happens, never comes to pass. So I learned a very important lesson here, which is that when you start going down the worry road, especially about illnesses and things like that, I mean, like I said, you can apply this to other aspects of your life as well. But when you go down that road, just let it go. Let it go, okay? You don't need to focus on that. You need to focus on the reality of the moment. If you're uncomfortable and in pain, then go to the doctor and find a way to deal with that. Find out what's wrong with you, okay? Go through the tests and procedures or whatever, but don't sit around wondering worst case scenario until you really know that that's what you're dealing with. And if that's what you're dealing with, the worst case scenario, then you'll figure out a way to develop the strength to deal with that. But until that time, don't spin your wheels worrying about something that may never happen, because it will reduce the quality of your life. I guarantee that it will reduce the quality of your life. My poor grandmother, who was so smart, she was a very brilliant woman, very creative, very talented, right? She wasted so much of her life in worry that it was a real lesson for me. It was a real lesson for me of what not to do in your life, okay? So focus on what you have control over. I've mentioned this in a previous video. Focus on what you have control over and stop worrying so much about the what ifs and the possibilities, as remote as they might be, instead of focusing on what's right in front of you. So I hope this has helped you today. Until next time, be well, keep moving forward, stop worrying about everything, okay? And take care. Bye.